Welcome, everybody. Welcome to ITWeb TV. Today, we are joined in the studio by Loiso, who is the managing director of ICT Chamber and a board member of Broadband in Fraco. Good afternoon and welcome, sir. Welcome to ITWeb. Thank you for the opportunity to engage with us as we discuss your role as ICT Chamber, the work that you're doing, and the opportunities that you are presenting to the young people of South Africa. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Just to kickstart the conversation, can you tell us just a bit about ICT Chamber for those that might not know? What does the Chamber do? Can you just briefly tell us what does the Chamber do?
Thank you very much. The chamber is a business chamber, but that of SMMEs. It's called the ICT SMME Chamber. Its roots comes from the National IT Forum, which was a forum that was advising the president by then, which was 2017. So the ICT SMME Chamber came as one of the sort of forums or desks underneath the forum. There were four of them. The other ones are no longer there because they needed to focus on special areas. You had disability, you had youth, and then you had the SMME chamber.
Yeah.
Over time, it has registered itself as an NPC, and what it's really there is to advocate for SMMEs within the sector. Advocacy is quite broad.
Yeah.
It talks to issues of market access. It talks to issues of lobbying for policy in such a way that they benefit SMME development. It talks to intervening when there's unfair practices around SMMEs and other issues that would benefit the ecosystem of economic development for SMMEs.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Recently, you launched the South African Mobile Devices Distributors Repairs Association. Can you take us through that organization? What's its mandate and what does it entail, and what are you going to be doing for the young entrepreneurs?
Thank you. SAMDDRA, which is the South African Mobile Device Distributors and Repairers Association, it was formed by the ICT SMME Chamber. So as a chamber, we looked at a number of value chains. We said instead of just always advocating and getting involved in policy, let's look at things that are practical that we can contribute and do in South Africa for both for first economic growth and secondly to grow more SMMEs. We then looked at the mobile device value chain as a whole, starting all the way from conceptualization of a device, manufacturing, distribution, usage, ending with decomposition of these devices, what you would call e-waste. And we said, how do we make sure that this value chain benefits South Africans, create businesses and create jobs? When we looked at it, we realized even from manufacturing, we don't manufacture devices, we import them. But one critical area that we saw was almost disappearing for South Africans was the repair part. Repair goes with distribution. It was going almost the same way that the spaza shops were going, wherein foreign nationals have completely taken the entire industry. We said, let's first address that and we will go to other areas of the value chain. That's when we formed SAMDDRA with the intention to first professionalize the mobile device repair industry, because now you just go to a store. There is no recourse if anything goes wrong. So that was the first thing that we looked at. The second thing that we looked at was the amount of jobs that can be created by this industry for South Africans. It's a 50 billion rand industry a year, and currently most of that money gets out of the country. It gets remitted out because it's foreign national things. Thirdly, to give assurance to our users and customers, because you need to make sure there's a referral system, a system of trust for employers, employees within that sector, so that if you take your phone, you are assured that there's some code of conduct, both in terms of the products and components that are used, and also that your phones are not exchanged for funny things, which are the things that are happening where they take your original components and put your funny components. But also there's other sinister issues of national security that goes, I don't think we want to go into that, that goes into having foreign nationals handling these types of devices. So, but moreover is to create jobs and make sure that South Africans can participate in this 50 billion rand business. That was the reason that we formed SAMDDRA.
Okay, and how do you now roll out these programs? Can you just maybe try to share with us how you roll out these programs?
Yeah, so obviously there needed to be skill. So for you to be able to do anything in this value chain, you need to know what to do. So we had to start by creating, making sure that there is an accredited course, and our people are skilled to be able to do the work. In that, we partnered with the MICT and developed a course using unit standards that were relevant. But even then, we undertook a process to develop a qualification, a mobile device repair technician qualification, which has now been finalized through SAQA together with MICT. And through MICT, the initial cohort was funded and trained. So we've trained quite a number of young people. We started in Tshwane with 80. We've gone to East London. We've done Free State, Northwest, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo. So that was focusing on training technicians to make sure that we have the skill. We need much more than that. Obviously, we need thousands to cover the whole country, but we have to start somewhere.
So it's a national program that you are rolling out?
Yes, it's a national program.
Okay.
But obviously, we're not training for the sake of training. We want these young people, once they're done training, they become, first they're trained to run a business because they need to run a business properly. Thirdly, that they can operate and operate profitably. To that extent, we've also went into a partnership with SIDA and SIFA.
Okay.
It's a tripartite partnership. When we're done training through an MICT accredited training, SIDA takes over, wherein they train them to be able to run a business and assess those, because not everybody is meant to run a business. Assess them for readiness to run a business. Once that is done, then they will move on to a SIFA process where they can then be funded to open and run their own mobile repair shop. But we also have other partnerships. We've entered into a partnership with the Gauteng Department of Economic Development, wherein they aim to train 3,000 for Gauteng. And we are now starting with that cohort. I think we're starting with the first 160 or something like that. We're also talking to other partners so that, because SIFA is not probably going to be able to fund all those that are trained. So we're talking to other partners and other provinces as well to do exactly what we're doing with Gauteng, to get all the partners together. For instance, here in Gauteng, we also work with the city of Tshwane, who's assisting with where these young people can operate. So we believe in collaboration with the partners that we have, but also we are looking for more partners so that we can make this a reality and make sure that if you go to mainly every township, you should find local people who are born in those areas who are able to run these shops. Not limited to that, they should be able to also go into malls and cities to be able to provide this service, so that we don't have an economy which is simply taken by people who are not local.
So this program is focusing on the previously disadvantaged areas, or it's just for young people, entrepreneurs that feel like they want to be part of this program, then they can join it?
It's for young people across South Africa. We have a special focus for that, but general is for all young people in South Africa, as long as they're South African, which is what we mean by local. Yes, obviously, depending on the funding partners, they would have their own criteria in terms of which groups they prefer, but it's generally for South Africans with a focus on the township economies and rural areas. But obviously, we are not leaving out the suburbians and the cities, and we want, even there, it should be our people who are trained to make sure that all these opportunities can benefit South Africans.
Just also maybe just to move ahead on that, we know a lot of people right now, they don't have jobs, and some of them, they've lost their jobs. They need reskilling in that. If I'm probably, I may not be a youth, but I'm somebody who's willing to try and be part of this program. Do you guys accept people that are outside the youth age group that are willing to be skilled and are willing to be part of this program?
Certainly, certainly. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, funders tend to have their own target groups. But even with that, it's a conversation we've had with some of our partners to say, given our historical context, the older group, it's not like they had opportunities, if you know where we come from. So we would be really unfair if we do not give that opportunity. So where we find older people who come through and say, I'm willing to be trained, as long as they're literate enough to be able to understand your electronics, engineering sort of material, basic mathematics, understand English well, we'd assess for that. If they have the hunger, we really don't turn them away. There are people in our programs who are 40-something, and funny enough, they tend to be the ones who are become more dedicated. But obviously, we tend to also try to focus on what the funders and what the partners tell us to prioritize, but we certainly don't close anyone out.
Yeah. Just moving ahead with the growing digital economy, I think the issue of skills has become quite pertinent. And you, as the chamber right now, you are focusing on a number of projects, and this is just one of them.
That's correct.
What are the projects within the ICT space that you guys are undertaking that to try and create opportunities for young people, South Africans, to be part of the growing digital economy?
There's quite a number of them. One, for instance, that we are focusing on, you would be aware with the government's program to go DTT on television. Once everybody has gone on DTT with the set-top boxes, we probably would not have enough installers and people who can be able to go in all the townships and rural areas to be able to fix. So again, there we've made proposals to Centec and again MICT running programs of that nature. On 4IR, we on these 4IR technologies as a whole, we've got different programs focusing on different things, but following the national priorities. So that to make sure, because the issue for us is not training for the sake of training, because we've got lots of unemployed graduates because we don't seem to coordinate well, I think, as a country in terms of which skills are we training young people on compared to the demand that is from the workforce. So as a chamber, we tend to look at projects, national projects, or things like that are on high demand, and then we put projects on that. Something simple as there's this a piece of I would call it platform, which is called Salesforce. We know, for instance, that there is a lot of demand that the country is not able to meet, to an extent that banks end up going to places like India to hire people to come and work in South Africa. So those are the areas of focus where we would then pick up on things like that. We work with partners to make sure that we skill even for our SMMEs, but we can then skill young people to be able to get job. If they can start businesses, it's even better.
One of the things that you mentioned when we started off the role of the chamber, you spoke about advocacy, and I just want to draw attention, probably maybe if you are willing to have a discussion around this. looking at policies that are available right now? Are they empowering for or preparing people for digital economy? Are the policies right at the moment? Or what do you say about policy environment?
It's a very thorny one.
Yeah.
The policy issues, and there's good and bad.
Bad, okay.
We've had instances, for instance, if you look at the current policies that are coming from the Department of Small Business Development, they're quite encouraging in terms of what they want to do. But you find that if you look at the whole policy arrangement of government, it's actually not favorable to SMMEs.
Yeah.
So there are pockets where there's good policies, but in general, the environment is not good for SMMEs. I'll make a simple examples. We all know, all literature, all strategies of government, whether you're talking about NDP, whether you're talking about RDP from 1994, they all talk about SMMEs being at the center of economic growth and job creation in South Africa.
Yeah.
But when it comes to how we do things and implement things in general, SMMEs are at the back. Let me take a simple example in the issue of payment of SMMEs. If government departments do not pay SMMEs on time, SMMEs get to a point where they've got serious cash flow, to a point that they're not even able to pay tax. And if they're not able to pay tax on time because another government department did not pay them, and the Treasury uses now the PIN system, where because you have not fulfilled or paid your payee in this particular month, you go negative. You are not able to get another job because you are now owing SARS your payee for this month or VAT for this particular month, and you are not able to get another job from another department. So there is no coordination, policy coordination, when it comes to creating environment for SMMEs to thrive. Yes, we say quite a lot of things as government, but when it comes to the nitty-gritties, it actually almost always against SMMEs. So it's an issue of coordination. It looks like Treasury will do its own thing, this department will do its own thing, but on the ground, when we really have to get things to happen, it's more difficult. The environment favors the big guy, even though when we speak as if we all want to ensure SMMEs thrive, but the environment is not good.
Moving on, just still on the policy issues, I think over the couple of months since after the licensing of spectrum, SMEs has also come up forward to say we also deserve to get spectrum. What's your view there regarding spectrum allocation and SMEs? What's your position on that?
That one is almost criminal. And it's one of the examples that I was talking about.
Yeah.
When the first policy was put, or the first policies, the minister then, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, had issued the directive that the spectrum auction must go hand in hand with the WOAN, with the ITA for the WOAN.
Yeah.
And there are reasons for that. It's because obviously some of the requirements that you would have to put on the auction to ensure that the WOAN is viable needed to be there at the same time you are putting the WOAN.
Yeah.
And SMMEs had contributed a lot into having this policy put in. They've actually spent a lot of money. I was part of a group, or Chamber had created its own group of companies that came together and spent almost 5 million rand to ready themselves to respond to the to the ITAs, which were both at the same time. But for reasons not understood by anybody, which cannot be explained to this day, the department decided, and ICASA decided, to only issue the ITA for for the auctioning of the spectrum without the WOAN. And that only benefited the
big players.
MNOs. And those are some of the examples where you really don't know whether at night people visit other people and different decisions are
Have
taken.
you followed up on this to engage to try and understand what's the regulator's position when it comes to SMEs and spectrum?
Look, we've got a different regime now, which seemed to want to listen, but it's almost too late. It's the biggest gain would have been lost, and because what the OWN would have done, it would have made sure that SMMEs and mainly local, previously disadvantaged individuals participate at the highest level of the value chain, which is the ownership of the spectrum. And solutions that come out now seem to talk about the blend of making the spectrum available for SMMEs to use, which means they're not operating at the highest level of the value chain, which is what the previous WOAN would have done. We are encouraged. We've listened to the new minister, and the new minister seems to say the right things. The department seems to be
Have you
fired
engaged
up.
with him?
We've engaged with him in my other capacity, not in my
Okay.
capacity as a chamber.
Okay.
I've engaged with him in my capacity as a board member in one of the entities of the department. We've engaged after the budget speech, where I was also delivering a message of support. We are also seeing from the department a different sort of engagement with SMMEs. So we are hopeful that the new policy, when it comes out, as per the minister's budget speech, it will be more favorable to SMMEs. Also, making use of government entities like BBI and Centec to make sure that SMMEs can participate. Although the WOAN would have been the best sort of case for SMMEs, because it would have meant they would also participate on equal footing with the current big boys, which are the big MNOs, which is something that's almost lost unless they come up with something quite creative.
So if you put forward suggestions to the minister at the moment to say, this is our position as SMEs, we want ABC in terms of spectrum. This is the direction we
That's
want.
exactly what we are doing now. In fact, we had tasked one of our leaders to go put that together to respond to the budget speech, where we would be saying to the minister, given where we are now, this is what we think we can salvage. We are busy with that process as we speak.
Okay. No, thank you. Then let's just look at the ICT space in general, now including the private sector now, of which you guys also participate there. How's the relationship between the chamber and the private sector when it comes to empowerment within the ICT space? How's the relationship there?
Look,
And what needs to happen? What needs to be done to try and make the environment much favorable?
Look, companies differ, and there would be some who, and I wouldn't want to mention them by name, there would be some who tend to have real, genuine programs for SMME development as part of their ESD programs. There are those that are not interested, that do it as a tick box exercises, and you can tell between the two. There are those who would create their own, where executives create their own SMMEs and basically benefit themselves. So I don't think it's an issue that should be left to the private sector. When it comes to SMME development, I think it's something that government needs to take seriously and regulate, because it can't be left to companies whose, in most cases, whose intention is to maximize on profit. Yes, the new governance codes of good practice talk about how you should create value for everyone, but that's not where capital is right now. So I think it's something that government needs to take seriously and coordinate it. And I hope the new legislations that I've seen that will be coming out from the Department of Small Business Development are going to give more teeth to that department, so that it can be able to coordinate all of government when it comes to issues of SMMEs, whether we're talking about treasury, whether we're talking about different entities and how they procure and things like that. And I think it is government's role, especially because we all agree that the only way we're going to get out of this slow economic growth cycle and joblessness is through a thriving SMME ecosystem in the country. So it's imperative for government to do that. And I don't think we can leave it to the private sector.
And as we conclude, what are some of the immediate plans that you have as the chamber that you want to see being achieved in the near term?
I think for us there's obviously an issue of training. There's also the issue of ensuring that, because the biggest thing that SMMEs need, I think there's two major issues. The first one is that the way the system is, or the way the value chain is set up, is such that the big guys, using the distribution model, is that the big guys will always be able to beat SMMEs on pricing, because the MNOs would say they've got different tiers. You are a gold partner, and on the basis of that, the big guys get better pricing. So we need to also look at how do we regulate that, to make sure that either on the procurement side, or to regulate the fact that you cannot disadvantage SMMEs on pricing on the basis of the tier system. Obviously, there are reasons why there are those tiers in the first place. There's issues of training and. Or we can go to the other side where we say, when we procure, we must offset that price. And BEE is not enough anymore to do that, because MTN is BEE level 1, Samsung is BEE level 1, I think Huawei is also BEE level 1. So the fact that you are an SMME gives you no advantage, because the only thing that they use, in most cases, except where there is a clear condition that you must, only SMMEs can bid, they simply use the BEE score. And MTN, Vodacom, and all these big companies also have the same BEE score. So moving into that, I think we also need to strengthen the BEE Act to favor SMMEs more, so that you can create that environment where they are able to thrive. So I think those are the issues that we are looking at, both from the supply side and from the customer side, because on both sides we seem to still have bottlenecks for SMMEs.
In conclusion, share with us your vision now as the chamber. I think your vision for the ICT sector.
Yeah, I think what we've done with SAMDDRA, for me, is our greatest achievement to date, where we really look at value chains and we own them, and we sort of lead the way in terms of these industries. We also, for instance, planning another conference in October called SAMDEX, the South African Mobile Device Exposition, where we would be looking at what's in the country in terms of mobile devices, and having a conversation with all stakeholders in terms of what do we need to do to be at 30% local production or 40% local content, and so that we can start those things. I think that's really where we want to focus, and not just on hardware, enabling a software ecosystem, because we can't always wait for government. So while we're busy on this one side, advocating for better policy environment that would enable SMMEs to thrive, on the one side, we are saying, how do we innovatively make sure that we take ownership of certain industries and make sure they benefit SMMEs? And that's what we are doing with SAMDDRA. We are hoping that by next year, we'll probably have enabled about 3,000 South African mobile device repair businesses that would be sitting. And I think that's where really we can really make a difference in really owning certain industries for SMMEs and making sure that those industries can actually thrive. Obviously, for the sector as a whole, for the country as a whole, there needs to be a much more serious conversation. We talk a lot about SMME development, but everything else that we do seems to do exactly the opposite of what we say is the answer to the issues that we have in this country.
Sir, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate. Hopefully we'll be engaging with you very soon again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.